10 sailors are missing and 5 more injured after the USS John S McCain was involved in a collision with a 600-foot oil tanker on Monday morning, the Navy has said. The collision between the U.S. guided missile destroyer and merchant vessel Almanac MC was reported at 5:24 am local time. The John McCain was underway east of Singapore and the Strait of Malacca, on its way to a routine port visit in Singapore after conducting a sensitive freedom of navigation operation last week by sailing near one of China's man-made islands in the South China Sea. 4 of the injured sailors were medically evacuated. They were airlifted in a Singapore Navy helicopter to a hospital in Singapore with non-life-threatening injuries. The 5th sailor did not need further medical attention. After the collision, the John McCain sailed under its own power and headed to port at Changi Naval Base in Singapore. There was no fuel or oil visible on the water's surface near the ship just after the crash, according to a video posted by Vessel Finder. The Almanac MC was heading at 228 degrees at 10.8 knots approaching the eastern approaches of Singapore. It was within a group of approximately 7 cargo vessels approaching Singapore. The footage shows the Almanac MC veering sharply to the left with its speed dropping considerably at the moment of impact. At least 3 cargo vessels continued at speed despite the accident, while the Almanac MC appeared to reverse away from the USS McCain. The Almanac MC continued towards Singapore and is currently at anchor outside the port. The crew reportedly fought flooding in 2 crew berthings and an area of the ship known as the shaft alley after the ship sustained damage to its port side aft, or the left rear. Analysts said the accident, so soon after June's collision off Japan involving a U.S. warship, raised questions about whether the U.S. Navy was overstretched in Asia as it seeks to combat Chinese assertiveness in the South China Sea and North Korea's nuclear ambitions. The U.S. Navy said there was significant damage to the hull of the warship in the latest collision, which led to flooding of crew sleeping areas, machinery and communications rooms. In a statement released after the McCain reached Changi Naval Base, the U.S. Navy said, damage control efforts by the crew halted further flooding. A helicopter took 4 of the injured to a Singapore hospital with injuries that were not life-threatening while the 5th did not need further medical attention, the Navy said. The 505-foot vessel could still sail under its own power after the collision at 5:24 am with the Liberian-flagged tanker, which was slightly bigger at 600 feet. The warship had been heading for a routine stop in Singapore after carrying out a freedom of navigation operation in the disputed South China Sea earlier in August around a reef in the Spratly Islands, sparking a furious response from Beijing. The Singapore government said no crew were injured on the Liberian-flagged Almanac, which sustained damage to a compartment at the front of the ship some 23 feet above its waterline. The Almanac MC is an oil and chemical tanker that is 600 feet long and has a gross tonnage of 30,000. That makes it more than 3 times larger than the McCain, which is 505 feet long and only has a gross tonnage of 8,300. A ship tracking website showed that the Almanac was ballasting, or not loaded full of oil for cargo. A picture of the John McCain after the collision shows the ship riding low in the water with a hole in its side near its waterline. There was no immediate explanation for the collision and the Navy said an investigation would be conducted. There was some speculation by people on Twitter that because the damage to the John McCain was at the rear of the ship, the U.S. destroyer wasn't at the fault, but there have been no official details to confirm what caused the collision. Singapore, a city-state at the southernmost tip of Malaysia, is one of the world's busiest ports and a U.S. ally, with its naval base regularly visited by American warships. Search and rescue crews from Singapore and Malaysia went to the area to help look for the missing sailors. This is the second collision involving a ship from the Navy's 7th Fleet in the Pacific in 2 months. 7 sailors died in June when the USS Fitzgerald and a container ship hit each other in waters off Japan. The Fitzgerald's captain was relieved of command and other sailors would be punished after the Navy found poor seamanship and flaws in keeping watch contributed to the collision. The Navy announced last week. An investigation into how and why the Fitzgerald collided with the other ship was not finished, but enough details were known to take those actions, the Navy said. The Japan-based 7th Fleet said the McCain was heading to Singapore for a routine port visit. The ship is based at the fleet's home port of Yokosuka, Japan. It was commissioned in 1994 and has a crew of 23 officers, 24 chief petty officers and 291 enlisted sailors, according to the Navy's website. The U.S. destroyer is named after John S. McCain, Sr. and John S. McCain, Jr., who were both admirals in the U.S. Navy. Republican Arizona Senator John McCain, the grandson and son of the ship's namesakes, tweeted about the incident. He said, "Cindy and I are keeping America's sailors aboard the USS John S. McCain in our prayers tonight. Appreciate the work of search and rescue crews." President Donald Trump also made a comment about the incident after he returned to Washington on Sunday night from his New Jersey golf club. When reporters shouted questions to him about the McCain, he responded, "That's too bad." About 2 hours later, Trump tweeted that thoughts and prayers are with the McCain sailors. He wrote, "Thoughts and prayers are with our U.S. Navy sailors aboard the USS John S McCain, where search and rescue efforts are underway." An early news release from the Navy said, "Initial reports indicate John S. McCain sustained damage to her port side aft. Search and rescue efforts are underway in coordination with local authorities." In addition to tugboats out of Singapore, the Republic of Singapore Navy ship RSS Gallant, 97, RSN helicopters and police Coast Guard vessel Basking Shark, 55, are currently in the area to render assistance, the release from the Navy said. MV-22s and SH-60s from USS America are also responding. Malaysia has sent 2 naval ships to join the search and rescue efforts. Malaysia's Navy Chief Ahmad Kamarul Zaman Ahmad Badruddin tweeted that 2 Malaysian naval ships were deployed to help look for the missing U.S. sailors. Badruddin wrote, "Malaysian Navy, Air Force and maritime vessels and aircrafts deployed for us John S. McCain SAR, PSC, pray for their safety." The Navy said Osprey aircraft and Seahawk helicopters from the USS America were assisting. It also said tugboats and Singaporean naval and Coast Guard vessels were in the area to render assistance. The damage and personnel injuries are being determined. The incident will be investigated, the Navy said. An emergency family assistance center has been set up for family members. Besides the John McCain and the Fitzgerald, another U.S. Navy ship was involved in a collision in May. The cruiser USS Lake Champlain was engaging in training on May 9 when it collided with a 9.8-ton fishing boat off South Korea's east coast in the Sea of Japan. An official at the time said the incident appears to be a minor collision and that no casualties have been reported involving the Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser. The fishing boat, named 502 Namyang, carried 6 crew members and it was heading back to port at Gyeongpo, North Gyeongsang Province. After the crash,